What is going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Bleed Blue Daily Show. I am Paul, joined by Jaden. Today we have a special guest from KSR. We have Steven Peak. What's going on, buddy?
How's it going, man? I know we get to talk Kentucky football, basketball, and all that, but you and I talk about the Dolphins every time we get together. So I'm assuming we'll have some conversations about that. There it is. Love it.
I got the OG helmet right here, man. We're gonna have to talk about. We'll definitely. We won't bore everyone. We can do that last because I know Jaden's gonna sit there and roll his eyes and stuff like that. But we said Dolphins. Did we say NFL?
I did say Dolphins, but
yeah, I thought we said Dolphins, not NFL.
Okay, I'll talk the Dolphins.
All right, man. Just kind of wanted to start off. You post a lot about saying like you're thankful that you were a Kentucky fan, right? Like, and you have these family ties. Talk to me a little bit about what those early UK memories were, because I think that's something really cool that really shapes how we are as a fan.
So do you want basketball or do you want football?
Anything, whatever's less painful.
Well, that'd probably be basketball, I guess, because I grew up in a household where it was like there was no choice. I mean, you pulled for Kentucky. My grandfather pulled for Kentucky. It's we have a couple Louisville fans in our family, but my earliest memory of being a fan, I was 7 years old. Kentucky was playing Arizona in the national championship game, and I had the Ron Mercer jersey on. I had like face paint on. I was super into it, and they lost in overtime, of course. And I was like crying at 7 years old. It was like the first sports heartbreak of my life, And that was it's the great thing about being a sports fan. It's so unique, like you experience these high of highs and these low of lows sometimes. And it really does. I talk about this frequently. It affects like your day to day. Like, there have been studies done that talk about how when your teams lose, people don't do as well at work. They make less money. Like, so that 7 years old is when I got hooked on this stuff. And there are days when I'm so grateful that I'm a Kentucky fan. And I think one of those days was last Tuesday. And then there are days when, it's tougher.
Both Saturdays this year.
Yeah, a lot of Saturday home games this year, especially. But yeah, I mean, like and then, 98. Here's my thing. When I knew Kentucky played in the championship in 96, I really into it in 97, followed the team in 98. I just assumed the national championship was just what Kentucky, I just played in. Like, somebody played Kentucky every year in that game. So like coming up as like being a fan during that time, like was, the easiest time to like pull in new fans because, I mean, they were just rolling.
It was, it's such an iconic time in Kentucky history. It's like the great comeback from basically 92 to 98, that entire journey of getting back to national prominence, basically being in I don't want to say the wastelands, but boy, it was some dry seasons, through a lot of the 70s and 80s. We didn't have the same success that we had in the 90s. And then again, in the kind of mid 2010s and, in the early Cal eras, and all we just did there was say how old we were, though. I'm just
yeah. I don't remember the pre 96 era, but of course know a lot about it and know that Rick Pitino came in, and I think one of the first things he said was, "I believe Kentucky will turn around in a very short amount of time with me as the head basketball coach." And man, he just came in with that, like, here's the expectations, and I'm going to exceed them. And then, he almost takes the 92 team to the Final Four. They go to the Final Four with 95, 96, 97. And then Tubby comes in 98. So, like, I mean, the 90s were just, I'm wearing a Kentucky 90s shirt right now. I think this is 96 national championship shirt. And I got to be honest, we got a little bit of that, like you said, from 2010 to 2015. I feel like we're back. I feel like, yes, I love that. I love it.
I don't have it up here. You can see you see like it cracked right here.
Yeah.
That's the joys of having children now. So it's not hanging up. I need to get the glass fixed. But yeah, like that's that's the era I think a lot of us are trying to grow up with, and why I think Mark, or not grow up, but or trying to reconnect with, right? Like the
Yeah.
things you when you're growing up. And it's interesting because I think you see those parallels. Oh, look at Jaden. He wasn't
I was trying to fit
even
in with all the memorabilia and stuff. I had to go over
he wasn't
to my
even a
dad's.
thought though, man. Like
Oh
he didn't even
no!
they didn't even know
Oh no!
his parents didn't even know each other when this happened.
I was about to say that's probably getting like towards that range of time. Yeah, I didn't want to age myself, but y'all were talking about like mid 2010s. Like John Wall is the first basketball memory I have, and so like
That's crazy.
That's a pretty good place to start. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's almost like starting in '96, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, like, but that's your first. If that's your first memory, like, what's the first game you remember that like you were just all in?
All the way in.
Yeah.
Probably like the North Carolina Anthony Davis game was when I like
The block
understood what was going on. I remember like the North Carolina 2010 game, the West Virginia game 2010, Louisville, parts of Louisville, but like 2012ish is when it started to like matter to me, beyond just like, oh man, my team lost. You know what I mean?
You missed all the fun, like the Patrick Sparks games, Michigan State, Louisville. Those are some fun times too back in the day. That I'll never forget. I was at my ex-girlfriend's house for that Elite Eight game against Michigan State, and I felt like that shot hung up for days.
Yeah.
And then reviewing, and how it's not HD like it is today, and you're just like, oh, his foot wasn't on the line.
They were zooming into like 4 pixels of Patrick Sparks' shoe, and he got fouled on that too. He got fouled. That should have been an and one
right there.
Yeah.
And Azubuike missed the game-winning shot in the first overtime. It was a terrible shot. We ran a terrible play. We had the ball to win it, and then obviously we lost.
Well, Rondo should have just gone to the basket. Should have just been the Rajon Rondo show.
What's one player y'all didn't see that, like, if you could go back and watch, that you would have?
Oh, that's a great question.
I think mine's Tayshaun. Something about Tayshaun, just like, I don't know if I would end up picking him because of the time, but I would want to watch. Just something about his game. I feel like he would play really well right now too. It fits what I like in basketball players.
No lie, I tried to learn how to shoot left-handed when Tayshaun was here. Like, I wanted to shoot like Tayshaun. Mine would probably be Jamal Mashburn, because I was 2 years old in 1992, so obviously I have no memories of him. But just like, he was the guy that sort of got the Rick Pitino era going. He was kind of the guy like, okay, now we're going to go out and get Antoine Walker, and we're going to get Derek Anderson, Jamal Mashburn. Like, so I would have loved to have seen, he almost. I'm not saying single-handedly, but I mean, if he doesn't foul out in the Duke game, they probably win. So again, officials in the Duke whistle.
Well, I don't want to talk about Duke whistles.
Don't get Paul rolling.
That's going to get it. That would get an entire show of just, I mean, if we were coaches, we'd get fine. Mine would probably be like Kenny Skywalker. A little before my time.
Yeah.
He played in the NBA when I was, alive, but not Kentucky.
Drafted over Michael Jordan. It's that's like the thing that he's kind of known for, I think, as outside of Kentucky.
It's a good decision by the Knicks.
Yeah. Did Jordan go third? He went third in that draft, didn't he?
That was Bowie.
Yeah. Do what?
That was Bowie.
No, that's right. That's right. It was Sam Bowie. Gosh, I feel like an idiot.
I was sitting there and I was like, wait a minute, what? Didn't Bowie get picked by the Knicks too?
The Blazers.
Yeah, it was the Blazers. Yeah, because I was looking and I was like, Knicks. And I was like, 86. I'm like, nah, Jordan was before 86. I was having that thought in my brain, but I was like, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about here, so I'm not going to jump in. But then,
don't doubt your instincts there.
We're knocking Jaden over here about being the baby, and he's the one that calls it out. So I think
that's true.
Obviously, you cover the team a lot. You've seen, probably a lot more than some of the casual fan has. What's kind of the most striking thing to you? Obviously, through just a couple games, but the difference between the end of what we saw with Cal and what you're seeing now with Mark Pope?
It's really tough because I kind of have this. I still have this ambivalence about Calipari. He gave us so many good memories that I don't want to bash him. It is hard though to not compare and contrast. I mean, he was just here like less than 12 months ago, so there are noticeable changes. I mean, within like the administration to the players and how the players interact with not just the fans, but the media. I mean, everything's just less tense, I feel like, in every post-game interview, I've really noticed that these guys are embracing Kentucky. Not that didn't happen under Cal, but towards those last few years, and it probably just happens because you lose games and there's criticism and this thing is sort of piled up over a few years. But these guys are really embracing it. I loved everything Otega Owe said after the Duke game. He said something about when you put this uniform on, you carry yourself in a different way. And it's definitely something that it's very clear that Mark Pope is talking about this a lot, that he's really trying to instill in them that playing for Kentucky is a big deal. Rick Pitino visited with the team. He said something to them along the lines of, you may not fully understand it right now, but you're going to look back in a few years and you're going to understand how awesome it was to wear Kentucky across your chest, to be a part of this historic program. So I think this is stuff that Mark Pope is doing, and you can see it. And I had a chance to go to a Morgan shoot. Did I get enough Morgans in there? I don't know. I don't know if I did. I think I might have left a few out, but I went one more. All right. I'll get it the next time. But we got a chance to talk with Travis Perry and Trent Noah, and obviously, growing up in Kentucky, they were excited to be here. But talking with Andrew Carr is just like, Kentucky fans are crazy. Like you just don't get this sort of attention playing basketball in many other places.
Ainsley Almanor even just said, I think 2 or 3 days ago, maybe it's not even that long ago, about where someone was saying, I wonder if Mark, if the players think about raising number 9 as much as the fans, and he said we do.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't. I don't think you would have seen that the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, that's the thing too. I mean, Pope is a Kentucky fan. Like, he's a fan. Not that Calipari didn't want Kentucky to win. Of course he did. But like, you can feel it. Like, you can just feel it in their excitement when they won that game. I mean, it mattered. Everybody on the sideline. It didn't matter that guys got taken out. Starters got taken out. Everybody on that bench was going nuts, like the whole game. They wanted it so bad. And it just, the whole atmosphere of that game was so intense because Kentucky fans wanted it so bad. We were so tired of losing these Champions Classic games. That we've lost.
We're just tired of losing to top 25 games. Like it had been. We had lost. I think our record in the last 20 was 6-14. I think against top 15 teams. It was crazy how bad it was.
It's just like every big game, the fan base gets up for it, and just to get let down. And that's why it was so fun to beat North Carolina last year. It was fun to beat the hell out of Miami. Of course, you follow that up by losing to UNC Wilmington. But these big games where you just kept getting let down. And here's a big game. And there was a part of me that, as the game was tied with 2 minutes, 9 seconds to go, I said, you know what? I'm not going to be upset if they lose, because they've showed that they can fight back. They can claw their way back into a game. They showed some fight. I don't like taking moral victories in basketball, but if there ever was one, here we go. Well, they freaking won. I mean, everything that Mark Pope has done so far he's knocked it out of the park. Everything he touches has turned to gold so far. I've never seen anything like this. He kills the press conference. Big Blue Madness. Scores 100 points in their first 2 games. Oh, he wins his first game by 41 points, which happened to be his number when he played at Kentucky. Then he goes and he beats Duke. I put a tweet out, you guys. I put a tweet out the day he was hired because I thought, like a lot of people, I was an idiot. I didn't do my research.
There was a lot of information that was kind of coming out in the first few hours that made a lot of people mad, right? Like, the boosters aren't happy. Mitch went rogue on this, and it goes from basically we're talking to Dan Hurley in the afternoon and we hire Mark Pope at like 11. It felt shady as shit.
It was like, no, man, let's don't, because I live in Louisville. I know the whole Kenny Payne situation. Now the difference is Kenny Payne had never been a head coach, but but I was like everybody else. I was like, okay, well, I guess we just do this then and see what happens. And I think I put the tweet out that was like 215 days until we play Duke, because I was sure we were going to lose. And everybody in the comments, they were like, oh, we're going to lose by 300, or, like there was no hope. And here, like, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but if they can just do what they're supposed to do in these next 4 games, they're going to go to Clemson. And if they win that game, it will be the best start that Kentucky has had since the 2014-15 team that went 38-1.
And look, and there's no reason to think they can't go beat Clemson now, because Clemson doesn't look very good.
No, I mean, like, and then, Gonzaga is going to be really, really, really tough.
I think we match up good with them, man. Like, I'll be honest with you, when I was doing like the first 10 games, I think Jade and I both did the first 10 games of the season. And I think I forget who landed. One of us landed at 8-2. The other one landed at 9-1. But that was before we saw the team, right? Like we saw that. You had 2?
Yeah, because I had Duke and then one of Clemson Gonzaga, and you had just Duke, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I thought it was early, but then like right before the game, I picked Kentucky to beat Duke, right? Because then I was like, my brain starts going, right? And I think you're starting to see this too, right? Like the success that these teams have been having in the NCAA tournament and in the Final Four specifically are teams that have more experience around them. And I basically just jumped on that bandwagon and thought, hey, look, like the team that has the most experience is probably going to win this game, and that's Kentucky. And it never felt like they were out of that Duke game. But now you're looking at them with, like you said, you beat Clemson. You go into that Gonzaga game undefeated. If they win that game, they're probably ranked number 1 in the nation too. Like that's
you're playing Gonzaga for number 1,
basically. Probably, yeah.
Maybe number 2 with Kansas, but you're probably playing for number 1.
That's a good point. I haven't gotten that far, but yeah, I mean, you're gonna have that would be another couple weeks to move up in the rankings, allow for other teams to lose, and yeah, Gonzaga, you're right. I mean,
teams play good teams. Like Auburn plays a bunch of good teams coming up here in a row.
Auburn's the team that scares me now, almost more than Alabama did. Like Auburn looks like the team that I thought Alabama was going to be.
Yeah, and they are going to be tough. I like that we got them at home this year. It's at home this year, right? Versus Auburn, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. When's the last time, you might know this? Because I don't off the top of it. What's the highest ranking Kentucky's had since? I know, but since the COVID year, was it last year?
Yeah, I think they did get up to where they got in the top 10,
7 or 8 last year, right?
Yeah, I would imagine after they beat North Carolina, they moved. Well, that might have been after the UNC. Well, there was a chance, I remember, to get in the top 5, and then because they just beaten Miami, and then they lose to UNC Wilmington, and it's like every single time they had a chance to like really make a jump. I would watch these other teams that were just in front of them in the rankings, like the day before, and Kentucky would lose anyway. So it was just like, man, I don't know. That team was so good. Like, what a waste.
They got to 6th last year.
I think that's the highest ranking.
They were preseason 4 in 23, but they lost that pretty much immediately.
Yeah. I'm not talking about preseason. I'm talking about like in the season.
They were 5-4 in February in 21-22. So that's right after Kansas. Is that the season?
Yeah, and then 2019 they got up to number 1, and then they kind of stayed in the top 8, 6 to 8.
Yeah, 2019 they got up to number 1, and then they immediately lost to Evansville, who didn't win a game in conference. I mean, for real, that's the biggest upset I mean, maybe in college basketball, like you might have to make an argument for it. And if you remember, that was like one of the first years, maybe the first year, that they started using like the net rankings to seed the teams. So it was huge that they lost that game because that was such a bad quad 4 loss. It was so bad that it just dragged them down the whole year. So even when they would get on it, like a good run, I think like some people even said they may have fallen to as far as a 6 seed just because of that game. And it was the same deal as last year. You know, Oakland, you should have won that game. But the reason that you were playing Oakland was because you couldn't beat UNC Wilmington at home. And if you just win that game, that's a seed line minimum.
It's a seed game. I was about to say Evansville is a seed game. That team would have been a 2 seed, should have been a 1 seed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it looks like it was the 1920 season was the last time Kentucky had significant time in the top 10. Well, no, 21-22.
The tie team after Kansas got into the top 5, top 10 range for a while.
Yeah, but those are the last two. Like obviously last year we had a little bit of a run, but we were mostly in the teens the whole year. But I mean, this team looks like it could be. This looks like the team that if you're going to have a solid run in that top 10 to 12, I think this is a team that has a lot of potential for that.
I mean, go ahead.
Well, just the next 2 weeks. I mean, you should spend 2 more weeks in the top 10 if you take care of business. At least 2 more weeks. It might be 3 based on how the December schedules work. I don't know. 2 or 3 weeks in the top 10 just off not losing. Just take care of business. Right, and then if you win the Clemson Gonzaga week, you're top 10 for probably the next month or 2, regardless.
Oh yeah, I mean at that point, I think you look at the I'm not looking at it right now, but off the top of my head, I think the rest of your out of conference schedule, I think the only team left is Louisville. Is that
Ohio
right?
State.
Ohio State. That's right. Ohio State and New York City. That's right. I mean, but that's a game that I would imagine they would be favored in. So like if you can get through this out of conference schedule with only 1 loss to Gonzaga, yeah, you're probably top 10, or at least top 10, I think. So
Ohio State could be ranked again by the time we play them too.
Ohio State, when they played Texas and the couple games at the beginning of the year, they shot amazing. And then they played, was it A&M that they played last week? They played another ranked game last week and got beat,
Ohio State
big by the end. Yeah. I think it was A&M and they got
lost
beat like
14 by A&M.
Yeah, not that. It was pretty much double digits every time I checked on it. And they didn't shoot amazing from 3. So like I'm wondering if Ohio State has a little bit of fraud watch from the first couple weeks, a little bit of overreaction.
So Ohio State, to give you an example, Ohio State plays Pittsburgh, Maryland, Rutgers, and Auburn before they play us. So you're gonna know exactly who Ohio State is by the time they get to. So they have an opportunity to be ranked. Maybe they won't be because of how their schedule, but I mean they play some teams that you're gonna have some good film on them before we play
them. I'll say like as this win versus Duke was so big. Not just because you finally won a Champions Classic game and you beat Duke, and it's validating for a lot of fans who thought, we should be winning these games more often. But it's big because you have a month, basically, or not a month, but you have 4 games before you really get challenged again. And if you had lost, there's so much pressure now to win this game at Clemson. I felt like losing this Champions Classic game was sort of like the reason that you would see Kentucky come out and struggle in these other big games because you had to win them.
We didn't know.
Yeah. And yes. And then but to lose in the Champions Classic means, again, the same schedule. These are basically the same schedules we've had for the last 4, outside of COVID, 4 or 5 years, where you get one big game and then you got a month off and you play another big game and then you play a couple more mid-majors and you got one or 2 more big games. And if you lose this champion, now there's so much pressure to win the next, the CBS Sports Classic. Otherwise, you go into conference play, you have 0 good wins on your schedule, and that is kind of what has happened the last few years. I think the most frustrated I've ever been after a game was when they lost to UCLA in Madison Square Garden back in 22.
Was that Tiger?
What's that?
UCLA and the Tiger?
Yes.
Tiger Campbell, was that the guy's name? I was so mad at that game.
I think Kentucky scored like 52 points, something. Yeah, it was just so boring. I'm like, I wouldn't watch this if I wasn't a Kentucky fan. Like I barely want to watch it right now, and I'm at the game. Like that's all I can do, and I don't even really want to be here. It was that boring, and you just knew at that point this team's not very good. And I've been saying this for a decade now. You have to get a 1 seed. If you want a legitimate chance at winning the national title, you have to be a 1 seed. Since Calipari has been at Kentucky, it blows my mind that this is true. But since Calipari, what's that?
I love these numbers. Give them to me.
Oh, okay, yeah. So since Cal got to Kentucky, that 2009-10 season, every national champion has been a 1 seed, unless it's UConn. Isn't that UConn 3 times has won? As not a 2 seed won when Villanova hit a buzzer beater. So I mean, like a 1 or a 2 seed, but they beat a 1 seed.
In 23, they were a 4 seed.
Yeah, and they were a 3 seed in 11.
So it's 95% of champions are 1 or 2 seeds if your name's not UConn. Is something like that. That's
it's crazy. So like outside of those weird years where like an 8 seed beats a 7 seed beats an 8 seed in the national title, like we saw in 2014,
UConn,
which was UConn, and then we had a crazy tournament a couple years ago, and UConn won it. And you know what's even crazier? They've done it with 3 different coaches. That's what's crazy. Like like the wild runs that they go on. They actually won one with who was it, Ollie or whatever his name was. He actually Kevin Ollie. Yeah, and he got fired shortly after. So like
next season.
It's crazy. But you have to win. You have to get a 1 seed, and you can't lose these games, these Champions Classic games, and these CBS Sports Classics, and the Big 12 or the ACC Challenge. Like you have to, if you do 3 of those, and you play Gonzaga, I mean, you got to win at least 2 of those. So getting that first one again, and one that we did not expect to get. I mean, is it crazy to think?
But is that as much now? But do you think that's as important now with how good the SEC is now viewed? Because I think before it was because the SEC, and I'm like, you're right in that aspect, but I also think a couple years ago, especially, it's different now, right? And now it doesn't help that Kentucky's done that and then not been great. Like they're a 4 or 5 seed in the SEC, right? But like if you're 1 or 2 in the SEC and you drop a couple games through there, but you win a couple out of conference, I think it's seen different now because I think the SEC is now considered the best conference also in basketball.
I think you're right. But here's what I would say is that if you don't win those games, well, now you're going into a tougher SEC. Yeah, you get more opportunities, but you're going to take more L's. So yeah, I get what you're saying, and that does make sense that you're going to get more shots at big because before that was it. Like, I mean, you might get a good Tennessee team one year, you might get a good Auburn team, but yeah, there's a lot of average was going on in the SEC. But I
think there's a high chance you might get 2 1 seeds from the SEC this year.
It's possible. I mean, and here's what I was going to say. We have gone. If we don't get a 1 seed this year, it will be 10 years since we've had a 1 seed. You know the longest Kentucky's gone without a 1 seed prior to that? 6 years. 6 years. 6. It's ever since they started seeding the teams, the longest Kentucky's gone without one is 6 years. And now we're at 9. And I just kind of assumed coming into this year, just because of how Mark Pope had to put together a team from scratch and do it so late, I just thought that it was guaranteed that we wouldn't get one, that we would go 10 years without one. And there are places where you can go 10 years without a 1 seed. Kentucky shouldn't be one of them. And that's like where I was getting with how big that Duke game was. Kentucky's got to be a 1 seed. They got to be a 1 seed every few years. I mean, you can take a couple years off, but like no one care. I don't think there's a fan base, honestly, that cares more than Kentucky, but there are only a few fan bases and only a few programs that have the history like Kentucky does. I mean, the most winning, the winningest program of all time should get a 1 seed every recruiting class. You know, every 4 years you should have one. I mean, it should be guaranteed that you have one. And I do think under Mark Pope they're going to get chances at that, because that is the way to win a national title. And every time you get a 1 seed, you're kind of knocking on that door. And in the 3 years that Calipari got a 1 seed, isn't that crazy? He only got 3. They went to the Elite Eight where they got beat by West Virginia. They won a national title and they went to the Final Four.
That was such a fluke game. Such a fluke game.
I know. I mean, that team should have gone 40 now.
9 more times Kentucky wins that game. Just that was such an unreal game. When we're the other thing too about this, and I think Duke opened a lot of eyes in a lot of aspects, not just from, because I think a lot of fans wanted to be invested, but I know people like Jaden and I were a little bit cautious in the aspect of, I don't want to feel too over the top right now because it's a new team, a new coach, a new system, a bunch of guys that haven't played together, right, and all of this, and it's like if we lose, I don't want to be gutted, and then. Like I remember tweeting out, and I basically said, if Kentucky plays a clean game for 10 minutes, they're going to win, because it didn't feel like it was like, you didn't feel like Duke was bossing the game. You felt like Kentucky was giving chances away, and then when you watch the journey and you see Mark Pope saying, hey, he's going to spin back inside, and you're going to steal the ball. It's like you're seeing these things, and it's like, this son of a bitch can coach. Right. And then you hear him at halftime when he's talking about, hey, like, why is this happening? And he's giving these explanations. And it's that aspect of like, not only does his offense usually play well, but it looks like he knows how to coach some defense a little bit. And it's a little different when you're not at BYU and you can attract guys. And it's also a little different when you've got, and I've said this before, if this team does something special, they got to be called the no names, because it's a bunch of dudes from nowhere that no one thought anything about, that there's not one guy. Well, I mean, there's a couple, right? I mean, Brea, some of these guys were highly recruited, but not everybody, right? And if they do something special this season, boy, like, and I feel like special is relative, right? Like, I feel like this team going to an Elite Eight or something like that can be a very special season. I know everybody wants Final Four and all this, and I get it. But I think there's a lot of ways that this team can be special, especially, obviously we beat Duke. Maybe we knock off a number 1 team, because I think they're probably going to have at least one shot at a number 1. They might have 3. I mean, Auburn,
they could.
Gonzaga, all those teams could be ranked number 1 by the time we play them, right? So I think it's something that's going to be really interesting. But what college basketball is not ready for is the blue wave that's coming behind this team. Because if we're bringing it back from like that 2015 undefeated title type where we were Clemson, you're going to find out real fast that this team travels again when we play Clemson. Like New York, you're going to find out, because I think that game against Duke was kind of the measuring stick. Obviously we had Kentucky fans there. It wasn't like it's been in the past. I think you're going to see that blue wave, that big blue mist just start descending on places like you used to in the past. And that's going to be a big difference maker too for this team as they make a run in the tournament.
100%. I mean, you can already see it on Twitter. When we get good, we are the most obnoxious fans. I mean, Tennessee football fans are like in the same sort of annoying, like, I get it. Like, if you're not with us, you probably hate us, because when we get good, or we can feel this momentum coming, because even when they won big games the last few years under Cal, there was still this feeling of like, well, let's just see how it goes. Let's see how, like, oof, we got lucky that North Carolina, missed some shots and turned the ball over. But now, man, and part of it is just all this momentum. I mean, since the press conference and the Big Blue Madness and all of that other stuff and everything else that Pope has said, and these players are saying, people are really behind this team. I feel more connected to this team than I have felt in a long time. And this team has 0 returning players. And yet I feel as a fan and somebody who covers the team, that I don't know. I just feel like these guys, they're saying the right things. They're very personable.
They're
I'm not knocking.
too.
Like, and they're approachable.
They're not like some of these 5-star guys that we've had at Kentucky where they don't like these guys. They engage with fans on Twitter. If they're out, they don't shy away from pictures. And like it's like this is the thing they've always wanted, and they're just reveling in it, right? Like that's a big difference too. They engage with people on a level. The coaches engage with fans. Like you have this whole social media now engagement that we never had before, right? That, I mean, I've seen Mark Pope engage with people on social media. You never had that with Cal. And I think that's another reason why you feel that connection, because you can see it, touch it, all of those different things that you never could for the last, 10, 15 years.
Well, I think Cal at the beginning was pretty good at this stuff. Yeah. And he was really good with the media. He was really good about, we got to know his players a little bit more. They got to show also, like, they showed personality. Like, they weren't too cool for school. Like John Wall had the John Wall dance. He was dancing all the time. They were, hello, Mr. President. This is DeMarcus Cousins. Like, there was stuff like that we were doing. The Hoops for Haiti stuff was awesome. And this kind of continued. And then, I don't know. I mean, look, I think, and I hate bringing this game up, but I think that it broke the fan base a little bit. I think it for a lot of the new generation, for me, because I don't remember Christian Laettner's shot. The Wisconsin game is like that's Luke May was just that sucked. That sucked, and that team probably wins the national championship. But that was
a Final Four game. Like that should have been a Final Four type game. Like they were the two best teams in the country.
Yeah, I mean, and what a terrible seeding that was. But that goes back to losing games losing to UCLA, like losing games in November, December cost you a 1 seed. But what I was saying was that, like, I felt like after that game, it should have been after that Wisconsin game and after that season. For one, we talk about 2015 like a puppy died. Okay, they won 38 straight games. They lost. Don't even talk about the loss. They went undefeated in the regular season in a power conference. That ain't being done again.
Probably not.
Like, I wish on that banner that hangs up in Rupp and it says Final Four. I'm like, that is like that is diminishing what this team did.
But I also think it shows how much the Kentucky actually thinks about the fact that the ultimate banner is what matters.
No, I agree. But if they had won it, I would have wanted that banner to say 40-0. And it should have been. There should be something in that banner that says 31-0 perfect regular season. I mean, it's incredible. And it's incredible for two reasons. And they kind of contradict each other. But one, that they just blew the doors off of some teams. I mean, there was 41-7 at halftime versus UCLA. 41-7. It's UCLA, like, it's not, that wasn't like St. Bonaventure or Lamar or no, it was UCLA. Was like watching
a pickup game. I mean, it was just fun by the time that game was hit halftime. It was so bad.
They beat Kansas by like 40. But not only that, they also won games that they shouldn't have won. They were losing to Ole Miss by a couple points, I think, and Ole Miss had the ball with under 30 seconds to play, and they turned it over, and Kentucky was able to tie the game up. They won
the Elite Eight, man. Like, that might have been a game we probably shouldn't have won either.
Down 6 with 3 minutes to go. Yeah, Notre Dame should have won that game. I don't care how good Kentucky was.
And they had a shot to win at the end, too.
Yeah, and so that shot could have gone in, and that Notre Dame would be the Wisconsin. But they also, I think Texas A&M, Trey Lyles is at the free throw line with basically no time left, needing to hit both to force overtime, and he does, and they win that game. So, like, that season was so unbelievable. We will never experience anything like it ever again. It won't happen. You play too many good teams now. There's too many good teams in all of the big conferences. A major conference team went undefeated in the regular season while playing big name schools in the out of conference. It should be celebrated more. But I think what ended up happening was, like, the whole aura around the team, around the program, just the fans were so disappointed. They even came back, I think, the next year and beat Duke in the Champions Classic, and everyone was just kind of like, yeah. It was just like the energy was gone. It was just like, oh, we'll never get that shot at going 40-0 ever again. And instead of like celebrating it, we all just kind of put our heads down. And by the time that Luke May hits that shot against for North Carolina in the Elite Eight, It was just, well, yeah, of course he does, because that's just what happens.
I think you had that. I think it was a culmination of that. Obviously, the Luke May shot, everything that went on in the COVID year. I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and everybody can think about all the things that happened that year, and a lot of that, when it comes to the fans, a lot of things in that year really is what really threw gasoline on the fire, right? Not being good, doing the things they did during the season. Cal being very, Cal was very abrasive starting that season. He didn't like a lot of the stuff that happened. So I think I think you had a lot of leading up, and then that's where like it kind of peaked and everything started really going downhill from, I think, the fan perspective.
Yeah, and then a lot of the press conferences became "I told you so." Even when I wasn't at KSR, I worked for a local news station here, so I was still here in Louisville. So I was still covering the games, and there was a tone shift after the COVID year for sure. Like, I think going 9-16 will do that to you. I needed Kentucky to be good. Yeah, like I needed Kentucky to be good because, man, like the COVID sucked. Like,
there was nothing else, and I watched every freaking game of that season too, and it was so damn bad.
It was like the one year I really need y'all to like give me something to distract myself from the fact that we can't do anything, and will I ever go to a concert again? Like, will I ever go to a sporting event where there's 20,000 people ever again? So like, I needed them to be good, and it was the worst season ever. But then you come back and you actually have like a really good year the following year. And maybe you peaked a little too early, peaked like mid-February. But it just became a lot of like, I told you so's. And now it's like he's stuck. It's like it's a broken record. Like, you watch these Arkansas press conferences, you're like, oh my gosh, like we've heard all, like, I can't believe their team's good. Like, Arkansas has a good roster.
Well, their fans are starting to go, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, really? You liked that recruiting ranking, didn't you? We tried to tell you it didn't mean shit. Look who the coach is.
Zvonimir Visic might be one of the best players in the SEC. Like, I mean, the guy, he can shoot the lights.
Adu is a dog. Adu is so good.
Yes, he is.
You know what?
The rest of the team
been in Kentucky
really
though this year.
What?
You know how good Z would have been at Kentucky this year though, with this team that can shoot.
Yeah, he dominated. He would have dominated.
Man. I mean, obviously, I'm really glad because I like Amari, and I think Amari brings something that this team doesn't have. But boy, would he have been! I mean, and I like Andrew Carr too, because Andrew Carr. I remember saying I didn't like the matchups, and Andrew Carr gets backpicked first play of the Duke game, and I'm like, man, we're in trouble with this guy right now. I don't think he's going to play good. And then what's Andrew Carr do? I don't know, just make us win the game. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to stay sit the rest of the time this team plays.
I think it's just from the timeline, it would have been BG that wouldn't have got added, because Amari was like immediately, as soon as Pope got here, he got Amari. I think Z would have been
first one, right?
The BG. It was either BG or Osabor, and they chose like BG committed first, so they went BG. I think if Z had stayed, they maybe don't go after.
It's a good point.
That's a good season.
He wasn't at the beginning, but he started hitting a bunch of threes. I think
he's still probably a liability on defense. His defense was kind of kept him out of the games. But
double.
He's averaging a double-double. That's pretty good.
14 and 13.
Yeah, he might be one of the best players in the SEC. And still, like, and Boogie Flan might be the best freshman in the country. I don't know, maybe. But like, they're good. They're good. And I watched them play last night, and they struggled against a Pacific team who maybe isn't that bad. They played Northern Arizona close. So I mean, I'm just like, I can't help myself, man. Like, I know people on Twitter are like,
amazing because we beat Murray State by 40.
Yeah, go Racers. But there's like, I can't help it. I'm watching every Arkansas game. I'm more invested in Arkansas than as a rival than I am with like even Tennessee and Louisville right now, which is crazy. But it's like this. I can't watch them. And here's the thing. I want them individually to do well, but I want them all to lose every game. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how I can reconcile. I mean, I need them to lose every game because I can't. They can't go to a Final Four. You know, a lot of people are like, why do you care? Cal's gone. What are you talking about? You're upset. I'm obsessed with Arkansas. Yeah, I mean, I kind of am. That should have been Kentucky's team this year. It's literally
Kentucky red this season.
Yeah, it's
the heavens. It is not.
Oh,
yeah, God. That's how I feel. And that team doesn't beat Duke. There's no way. But you know how Cal's teams could in the past get going and then they get kind of good by February, March. If he ends up doing that this year and they go on a run and they go to the Final Four, that's going to be a tough thing to watch. If we don't, if the Kentucky Arkansas Final Four, if the script writers are any good, they would do that.
Oh boy, that would be fun. Now that would be fun. I'm okay with that. Or like an Elite Eight Final Four.
If they want to make it look a little.
Yeah.
If they want to make it look a little realistic, they might have to put us together in the first round. Make sure nobody's talking about Arkansas getting too far.
We'll be like an 8 and they'll be a 9. I don't think we're going to be an 8 seed.
It's like a 3-14 matchup.
They might have maybe they'll get a playing game, that 11 seed playing game. Hopefully we're not a 6. But
Calipari in Dayton with all eyes on him, throwing a fit in a red suit.
That'd be great.
I cannot wait.
But you guys watch his press conferences, you'll see, or at least seen the clips. Like it is the same stuff that we have heard for the last 4 years. I mean, it's the same exact stuff. And his whole shtick was, I mean, like I said, he was great at this. He was so good at messaging from 2010 to probably 2017. But here lately, I mean, I know it's funny watching Arkansas fans talk about it because, we tried to warn them.
I can't believe this was our life the last 4 years.
I mean, how about watching Mark Pope just like break down every Bucknell player? Every Bucknell play, like how you're going through, he's like 8 players in. Like what the attention to detail. You brought this up that he said he's going to do a spin move here. Cooper's going to do a spin move. Let's have another guy crash down and get the ball. And it's just he could have been wrong. I mean, it's just he's guessing. He's probability. Like he's doing what's Cooper? He probably watched enough film to know that's in crunch time. Cooper's going to
doctor.
Yeah, he's going to go to like his most trusted moves, and that was the one he seems to do a lot. So Pope guessed correctly. That's the attention to detail that goes beyond yelling, "Go!" It's like
Cal wasn't that guy, but he's never been that guy. The X's and O's. I knew one of the guys on that undefeated team, and he texted me the day of the Final Four, and he said, "We're going to lose today," and I thought he was just being an asshole. He said, "No," he said, "We're going to lose." And he said he goes, "When we're home tomorrow, I'll tell you why." And they lost, and he told me why. And it was exactly said Wisconsin's coach is going to do this, and Cal's going to stick with Andrew and Aaron no matter what happens, and he's not going to play Tyler, and he's not going to play anybody else. And if that happens and it works, then we're going to lose. And it happened exactly because Cal was loyal to players and not loyal to winning. And as long as that team was winning, he was staying it. Now, does that mean Aaron and Andrew didn't deserve it? Not necessarily. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not knocking the kids. But the thing about Cal that you saw, the thing that Pope showed right off the bat at Duke, is he's willing to pull the plug on anything to win the game. And you look at what he did from the 2-minute and 36-second mark on, and he put a 5 on the floor that had not played together all season.
Mm-hmm.
And it tore, and you saw Shire call timeout like 60 seconds later and didn't know what the hell to do. He had no clue what was going. It's the unpredictability now that every coach looking in crunch time is not going to be able to know, because now Pope's shown that he has an ability to go off script and go completely different and do something off the wall. And that is where I think you really have something that's going to be amazing in this basketball season.
Well, I'd say just like watching Kentucky just doing the same things on defense. I go back to the 2023 NCAA tournament game they lost to Kansas State. And you got Noel just in a pick and roll. It's like, okay, Oscar cannot guard the pick and roll. Okay, but we're just going to keep letting him fail at this until we lose the game. How about this? How about let's just, you know what? Just throw a zone out there. Go 1-3-1, go 2-3. Let's just see if it just makes them do something different. Make somebody else take a shot, because that Noel kid just kept either going to the basket and handing it off or shooting a three because Oscar didn't come up on it. And then watching the same thing with Jack Golke last year. It's like, why do we let this happen and we don't do anything to change it? So yeah, it was very refreshing watching Mark Pope just throw out different looks on defense. And I know for him, it's probably not just simply throwing out different looks. That was just like something I was saying for 4 years, just to, hey, if you don't even know how to do it, just go 2-3. Just even if I don't know how these kids don't know how to do it. That's still like how you would get them all the way to March and like, well, we haven't gone over zone yet. Like, okay, so what are we doing during practice? But yeah, like hearing Mark Pope go through all that, go through the details, I loved what he said about analytics, because he's right about that. It's one of the things I've always said, that you can look at these numbers and they tell you what happened in the past, but it doesn't tell you what could happen in the future. That's where you have a coach that has to make decisions, and they have to have a feel for the game. And he kind of talked about that. It's like he said gut feeling, and like you should go. The data should encourage your gut feeling too, right? So he's paying attention to all of these details when he looks at film. He's going through the analytics and he's taking in the feel of the game. There are guys who may not be in the right headspace, or they might, why would you not go to this guy? He shoots 45% from three. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was 0 for 4 that game, but do you take the chance of like the fifth one's going in, or do you go to someone else? And that's where I love listening to him break down the game. I don't know about you guys, but that has been refreshing. I could like listen to him just talk about basketball like a podcast.
Well, it's also the other part too, where a lot of people were like, why did Jackson Robinson play so much? And then you saw what his plus minus was. And what was the other weird stat, Jaden, you had about him that game where
like player efficiency ratings, and there's a couple like, people who have created their own formulas and stuff, and Jackson Robinson was like top 3 in pretty much everything. That wasn't like,
even though he didn't score, he affected the game in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys like, because he just draws a defender out, right? So you have to pay attention to where he's at, and he might get the best defender. Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit to something maybe. Well, I mean, it's fun, but it's probably less fun because we'll laugh about it. Oh, Kentucky football. We play Texas this weekend. I am really having a hard time not talking myself into the fact that I think that this is going to be a good game. I look at a lot of the stats and I look at who Texas has played. They've played, I think, defensively, I think they've played 2 top 50 offenses all season. So that's, could be a big reason why their defensive numbers are higher. Offensively, I think they've played 1 top 20 defense. And obviously I'm not knocking that, saying Texas isn't a good team, but you look at when they've played good teams, they've struggled. Arkansas, decent Vanderbilt, Georgia obviously got boat raced a little bit at home. That game could have been uglier than it actually was. Georgia basically dominated that game from start to finish. Am I crazy thinking that now that Kentucky, obviously with the exception of De'Aaron Jackson, that defense is 100%. You get Josiah Hayes back. Am I crazy thinking that this is a game that Kentucky could be in the fourth quarter?
No. No, I don't think you're crazy. They've led at halftime in the SEC versus 3 teams this year: Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee. They do show up for these big games, and playing the way that Stoops likes to play, they are able to run clock. They're able to, when you can get the defense off the field on third downs, or have the other team have long drives that wind up with 0 points like Tennessee had. There's a chance that you can be. That's what I've asked in these 4 games. Go to the fourth quarter where anything can happen. Stuff where you could potentially turn a huge defensive play into a win. Get a pick 6, recover a fumble in the red zone. things like that could, steal a couple possessions, and you might have a chance. This is so late in the season. Texas is one of those teams that's obviously fighting for a playoff spot. You get into the fourth quarter, and you're got a one possession game
between two rivals.
Yeah, right. So, you get into a situation where like they might get a little tense. They might get tight. Where Kentucky can kind of look at it as they're playing with house money. Yeah, they're still trying to go to a bowl. So, I mean, you'd have to win this game to do that.
But you got to play with house money, I think, playing, on the road at Texas, right? If this was Mississippi State, I think we're talking about making sure you don't do something stupid to lose the game. Here, I think it's just like, fuck it, just throw whatever on the wall and see what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, like if it's 4th and 6, for example, or 4th and 8, whatever it was against Ole Miss, chuck one up to Barryon if he gets in man coverage, and let's see what happens. I know there's a lot of Kentucky fans going. They had already booked this trip because it's never been there before. It's going to be a fun atmosphere. This game's going to mean so much to Texas.
You think we break out a new uni combo that we've never seen? Because I had a sneaky suspicion you might see black, white, black this game because we've never done it.
Well, you might know. You would know before me.
That would be fresh.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
I might send a text after this and ask, what are the chances we see black, white, black this weekend? I feel like if you're going to go to a stadium you've never played in before, might as well wear a uniform combination you've never worn before, right?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you guys this, because if Kentucky doesn't win this, they obviously don't go to a bowl for the first time since 2015. I'm just asking this as a fan, because I feel like you might be more tapped into stuff than I am. So I mean, I really don't know, but is this, I don't know that Stoops is going to be gone at the end of the season.
I got no indication. Everybody we've talked to is like it's there was like that lingering, and we kind of talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I think there was maybe a maybe, and now I think that maybe has gone to an absolute no. I think there was maybe a thought process that there could be a thing, but I mean, unless something happens at Florida State, and I don't think you're going to see that, because the buyout for that is way bigger than the buyout for us, and no one's coming to get him after a 1-win season. Or Iowa comes and offers close. I don't think there's any way. I think that's the only way that maybe he would leave. I don't think there's any buyout. He's not getting fired. None of that.
So I guess the question I'd have is, what can Kentucky fans see in these next 2 games that should make us feel excited about next season? Because
the young guys, I mean, I think you got, it's like, I mean, Wilcox, Rodriguez, Gilmore, I think I think you're going to see Cutter this weekend. I don't think that there's
okay. And that's what I was kind of getting at. It's like, that's what I kind of want to see.
Unless Brock comes out and balls, and he's capable of it. I mean, look, this is the first time Brock's really had a game where he's got his whole receiving core, right? He's got hard. And for the love of God, can we throw it to Jamori Macklin 4-6 times a game or something? My God, the guy does nothing but catch the rock. But I think there's things more interesting behind the scenes there. I think Mark is, and from some of the people we've talked to, I think Mark's really understanding. I think that the transfer portal, the money side of it, and I'm not saying he didn't realize it was important, but the engagement level you have to be on the head coach when you're not programmed to be a fundraiser, right? Like he's not, and that's not a knock on Mark. I'm not saying this to be degrading, but when you come to coach football and now all of a sudden you got to be a politician and coach football, right? You're not just trying to get a practice facility and you got to go to lunch with 3 people for a summer to try and figure it out, right? You got to now talk to 50 people all summer, and you got to be more personal. And I don't think Mark's that kind of guy. I don't think he's that bubbly outward. I think he's probably, I mean, everybody says he's nice, and I've been around him a couple times. He's been nice and cordial, but I don't think inwardly that's who he is. I think he's more of an introvert by trade. And a lot of coaches are. But what I've heard is, and it would be good to get your feedback on this too, what you think, is that he's changing some philosophy around the portal, around players that they're looking at in the portal, and basically realizing that that's kind of a way that they need to go about it. And his preference has been recruit and develop. And I think that's going to stay there, but I think that there's going to be more of a shift between recruit and develop and bring in guys that can go get it and not hope a guy's going to develop, right? I know there's been a lot of talk about the offensive line. Obviously, you and I were there yesterday. I think Roush put out an article that was actually good, right? It doesn't matter if you got $10 or $20 million. It's just a shortage of top offensive linemen in the portal. So that's where I think we need to get it right. It needs to be that refocus on hammering offensive linemen, those 4- and 5-star guys in high school.
They brought in a coach to do that. He's got to bring him in.
Did he though? Because Wolford was not good.
They have
at
4
Alabama.
tackle.
He's good at recruiting.
Yeah.
Sorry. So what was that?
They have 4 tackle commits, and he talked about it again on his show last night, the radio show, talking specifically, like he literally said, "We are not good at scouting transfers. We need to be better." Like he said, we are not doing a good enough job at scouting transfers. And to me, that said specifically, it sounded like, has my computer crashed? Can you hear me?
No, I can hear
you.
So that kind of goes also.
Crashed. I can't see y'all, but whatever. They have like 4 of them committed. August is one of them. Darren Stray is like the prize of the 4, and then they have a couple more. But to me, it sounded like they want to get high school guys because the transfer offensive lineman is not working for them really. And,
but it's not working for anyone though. I mean, you might have 5 offensive linemen in the portal. Like look at Miami, right? Like Miami's got real lucky; they got like 2 of them, and look how it's worked out. But they might have 5 to 7 guys in the portal that are actually really good. And then you're guessing. And that's the aspect, I think, of why. Look, if you're that good in an offensive lineman, you're probably not transferring.
Right, because you're going to get paid. Everyone else is just, as soon as they get to a school and they're good, they don't leave because they pay to keep them. They're too expensive.
I think what he's saying is even last night in yesterday's comments is he needs to put more of an emphasis, even if it's not more money, which they always need more money. So it is more money. But even if he didn't, if he meant a more of an allocation towards the transfers than the high school classes, it's going to be tough because obviously the high school kids want money, but they may go for a higher allocation of money towards transfers and towards specific positions. So instead of taking 3 good at some things, good at other things, players with holes at offensive line, they can take 1 or 2 guys that fill the gaps at starter positions that they know are good. Instead of we can scheme around this, we think this can work, like 1 or 2 good pieces more than 3 or 4 we can scheme around this pieces.
And I think from a portal standpoint, I think Kentucky was looking too much on measurables than just as for like dogs, right? And that's a philosophy shift, right? And I think that's where, and that kind of goes to some of the stuff we've heard, that there's like a kind of a mentality shift in the portal and how they're thinking about players now. And it's more so, dude's a dog, right? Maybe he's okay. Let's say he's a wide receiver. He's not 6'3", 200 pounds and run, but he gets open and catches everything, right? And he's played at a good school and he's played against top competition. He's done it. Going and getting a guy like that, who you're going to go, than just going and getting a guy because, it's kind of like just because he played at Alabama or he's a backup at Georgia or he started 5 games here and there, right? Like DJ Waller, I think is probably like one of the best transfers we've brought in because not only has he's got everything, right? He's size, speed, that he's got offensive draft, or he's got draft stock. That's where I think Kentucky's really going to start to look. And I've heard rumors and rumblings from some of the people in the know in that world that there's a very good chance Kentucky has a roster that can very much compete next year that they can get.
So with the transfers, it is DJ Waller, it is Wandale, Pop, but these are guys coming from real programs. These are guys that were like the best players on the team. Like these were the good players. Like DJ Waller, Pop, and Wandale were all going to start. We're all going to be, cornerstone pieces of their defenses. Waller a little less.
Macklin's like the only guy who wasn't.
I'm sorry, what?
Macklin's like the only guy who was really good, who started, who hasn't. But it's not Macklin. I mean, he's caught. We just don't throw it to. We don't get him the ball.
Yeah, I don't think that's a Macklin problem. But
I don't either.
When you go, I think we put too much credit into the name of the school they're coming from, in the sense of we treated Pop a All-American his freshman season, who the only reason he's not at Georgia is because they found an All-American the next season when he was hurt. So they didn't want to pay the guy that was a year older. That's the whole reason that Pop Dumas Johnson is here and not Georgia. They didn't want to pay the guy that was a year older. But you go find a starter, or a starter in Wandale who is an impact player versus I don't want to say a name, but like some of the offensive linemen who came from SEC schools who were not the best player.
There's a reason why they left the SEC school, right? It wasn't.
They were not the best player on the team.
I think you have to also look at that from that perspective too. Like if a coach leaves, I think it's a different perspective, because you can go get players that were good that might have played, but if the coach leaves, it's a different system. It's a different fit. That guy didn't recruit me. Maybe Stoops recruited him in high school, or out of high school, and they feel confident with that, right? Like there's a relationship. So that you're right. Those are two things from the offensive lineman standpoint. The biggest thing I think Kentucky needs to stop doing. Look, we had Will Levis. We were really lucky with, right? Like we got real lucky with that. Terry Wilson and Brock Vandegrift have had this. They're up and down, right? You can't in the transfer portal take a risk on a backup quarterback unless there's like a lot there. Unless he's like a true freshman, went there 1 year and leaves because of something like a coaching change. You got to go get guys that are proven. And like if you look at college football, right? Who are the guys that are winning? The guys who started, or like someone like the guy who went to Duke, right? He went to Duke because he started last year at Texas, but he wasn't gonna he wasn't gonna jump Manning because Manning's got too much upside. He wasn't going to jump Ewers. So he's a guy that's really good, could have started at Texas, good enough, played at Texas, won a lot of games at Texas, but wasn't going to jump these guys, and he left, right? That's a different type of player. Look at what Cam Ward at Miami does, right? Like Cam Ward, Miami's a 3 or 4 loss team without him, and they might go to the playoffs. They have an outside shot at probably winning the national title if they get the right draw, because they can score on anyone. That's why I think Kentucky either needs to develop their quarterbacks. And when you look at the guy, it's Stone Saunders, you got Cutter, you've got guys coming up. And if it's not them, you got to go say, I got $1.5 million to go give X player for 1 year to go win the games. If they don't do that, they can't take flyers anymore. I'm not saying Brock. I love Brock. I think Brock is an outstanding dude. He's a good person.
He's awesome.
And I hope next year he's a superstar. And he's kids playing banged up. He's got guts and heart. And this is just talking from an unobjective, like this is now like the sports media cap on. That's what Kentucky needs to do. And I think you guys probably agree with that.
Yeah, and I want to say that about Brock Vandegrift, man. Every time we talk to this guy, he's super professional, and he can just tell he's a good person. I can tell. Yeah, you can just tell he's not faking this. Like this is genuinely who he is. And I hate that he's taking so much flack this year, but that kind of comes with the role, right? I mean, you're a quarterback of an SEC team. That's the way it is.
You need to come here. You were a high profile, everything. You came from Georgia.
Yeah, they're not playing for free anymore. So
he's not, and I don't think he's hiding from that. I think he understands it. I don't think there's any part of him that doesn't realize that.
Yeah, and he's really taken the criticism. He's taken the put it on his shoulders. He's had that mentality. Love that kid, man. I really want him to succeed. But here's like, it is true, like what you said. Like we're going to the transfer portal for quarterbacks. We've been doing it since the 2018 season, and it kind of worked for a year with Will. It would have worked for 2 years with Will if he didn't get hurt.
And it might have worked. And it might have worked with 2 years with Terry if he didn't get hurt, because he was never the same player either.
That's true.
Like he never had that explosive extra. Like when you watch him, when some of those running plays against like Florida and in that year,
yes, that was the one I was thinking of too.
Year after that, ever.
Yeah, and it's the most important position in all of sports. Yeah. The quarterback position, you don't win significant. College, especially in college, right? Yeah, there are very few NFL teams that win without one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
Like this NFL team right here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we know. You and I know the quarterback struggle, right? I mean, sorry, go ahead.
If you're going to win without a quarterback, the rest of your team better be amazing.
That
shows you the value of a quarterback.
You need that 2018 elite. I mean, Kentucky they were a top 5 defense in the nation.
Yes.
And they had probably the best offensive line in the country.
And one of the best running backs.
And probably had one of the top 5, because running backs are loaded, right? So it's a little bit more. They had easily one of the top 5 running backs in the nation, probably the best offensive line in the nation, and a top 5 defense in the nation. Terry Wilson was not amazing. If we would have had a quarterback, if we would have had Will Levis on that team probably. I'll tell you what, that team goes to the playoffs. I'll tell you that right now. There's no doubt in my mind that 2021 Will Levis takes that team in 2018 to the playoffs, because we don't lose to Tennessee. We might only lose to Georgia. And who else did we lose to that year?
Mississippi State.
Mississippi.
No.
We
lost in 2021. They did.
Lost to Tennessee, Georgia, and
A&M.
A&M.
Yeah, in overtime.
We do not lose to A&M. We do not lose to A&M, and we do not lose to Tennessee. That team will go 11-1. I guarantee, and I bet they get into the playoffs. And they would have given Georgia everything, because that team turned Georgia over two of the three drives to start the game, and then they got behind, and the offense didn't have enough firepower to do it.
That was kind of the thing with the Tennessee game. Once you got behind with that kind of team that Kentucky had, you just didn't have enough time to come back.
Well, the mental mind, I think also didn't help there, because of they never played for the SEC East title before, right? And it's that whole emotional letdown.
Mm-hmm.
A comment and a question on this hypothetical. Comment, Terry got hurt the 2018 year as well.
19.
Yeah, he got hurt the 18 year as well. He hurt his
against South Carolina.
Quad or something. It was the game before A&M, and you could see in the A&M game he could not move. Like, they were trying to run the ball with him, he could not cut at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was like going back and watching it now that I've because they didn't announce it the end of the year that he was hurt. And going back and watching the game now is he just couldn't move. His leg was pretty hurt. So that was, I think, a lot of that season was him getting hurt and not having really another option or really a way to play without him being hurt. But the question was, if it's 2021 Will on 2018, do you keep Eddie Gran, and does that change your opinion on the question?
It's good.
Does Will question. With Eddie Gran in 2018 go to the playoff, or do you need
Eddie Gran? Eddie Gran objectively might be the best offensive coordinator Kentucky's had in the Stoops era.
Not even close. It's Liam.
Look what he did with Lynn.
Yeah, 2019 earned some stripes for sure.
Well, not just that, the Stevie Johnson year when he came in, right, when they had to revamp the whole offense around Stevie Johnson, that team was a prolific offense that whole season, right? Obviously, the bowl game we did play as well, but they put up 39, 40 points almost every game.
So you're a head coach. You have to hire an offensive coordinator. Eddie Gran and Liam Cohen are the only two people in the world who want the job. Who are you hiring?
I mean, now I'm hiring Liam Cohen.
Well, here's the thing about that, and then I think I don't want to put this on Liam, but this doesn't answer your question, by the way, because I don't know if this answers your question, but I was, he if he doesn't leave, there's a case that Mark Stoops is coaching at Auburn right now.
He's staying in right now.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, that 2022 year, that's what they had built up for. That was from the ground from 2013 to, because you go to 2018, they go 10-3, right? 2019, Terry Wilson gets hurt. You still end up pulling out 8 wins with Lynn Bowden. And now, as a matter of fact, if they had that offense ready to go for Mississippi State, South Carolina,
played him against Mississippi State and South Carolina, they probably would have won those games too.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, and then you go to 2020. That's COVID. You get into the 4th game of the season, and guys are just out all the time. And so I'm not holding that season against them. And then 2021, you're right back to 10-3
too. Though we got screwed in Auburn royally.
Yeah, that was bad.
A terrible game.
But
they got screwed the next week too. But anyway,
They go 10-3 in 2021, and then you got Will Levis coming back. You got these good freshmen coming in, these good freshman wide receivers. You still got Chris Rodriguez at running back. You got the great defense that you have. That was it. 2022 was the year it was supposed to that was the crescendo. That was what it was all leading up to.
It was the year they had been on the whiteboard. 24 was circle, or 22 was circle. This is the year that we make that we do something.
Yeah, because I think they thought that maybe in 2019, because of the way the schedule had lined up, that could have been it. But then, Terry gets hurt and that kind of throws that off. So then you come right back with 2021 and you look at that schedule in 22. I mean, if I looked back at the call they had on Barry on Brown, that's how fast it was, getting his foot set. I mean, well, they called the penalty on Barry on, but Dan Key called the pass. And if they win that game, if Will is able to play against South Carolina, there's a ton of what ifs. But that schedule was set up for them to go 10-2.
If we didn't run the stupid ass, I knew we were going to struggle when we ran that stupid ass end around for no reason.
Trick play.
Yeah, and also look, that kid didn't he threw a pretty ball. You were playing South Carolina, who wasn't that good, and you went ultra conservative. And the defense played their ass off the whole game because we were in it the whole game. But
it was 7-7 at halftime.
Will getting hurt was the the issue because Will if we beat Ole Miss, I think we probably do beat South Carolina. I think there's a lot more caution to the win in that game.
Think about what the Tennessee game would have looked like. You would have had number 2 Tennessee versus number 3 Kentucky. It would have been the biggest Kentucky football game of all time. And it's at Tennessee. It's dark mode. They probably don't win. They were also the only team to hold Georgia under 20 points that year.
Georgia has not scored more than 16 points in 3 trips the last 3
crazy.
Trips.
It's crazy.
They won 3.
Crazy. And but if you go 10-2 that year, you go to a New Year's Six bowl. Mark Stoops is a heavily wanted man. I mean, he's taken that's 2 10-win seasons minimum. If maybe they win the New Year's Six bowl and they go 11-2. It was all supposed to happen. I really think Liam Cohen leaving like he did and making it to where Kentucky had to go get an offensive coordinator and they get Rich Scangarello. Because all this talk about you can't blame the offensive coordinators. We've had all this turnover, offensive coordinator every year. No, it says Liam Cohen left. That's it. I mean, they had Eddie Gran for several years.
Liam Cohen left, came back, and left again.
Yeah, exactly. So all this turnover that we have to hear about.
It wasn't like it was the plan. Liam Cohen was supposed to be
right.
If Liam would have been there for 3 years and then left, cool. But this, I know there's people talking about posting pictures we should bring him back as head coach. That son of a bitch never needs to come back to Lexington again.
No.
He's the reason. You are right. Mark gets a lot of flack for stuff, but offensive coordinator. But really, because Eddie Gran and we were pretty good with Eddie Gran for a while, and then we had we had the bad COVID year, and he replaced him with Liam Cohen, and then Liam Cohen had a great year, and then we had to replace him, and then he left. So in the last 4 years, the only reason why we have a new offensive coordinator is Liam Cohen. Been more offensive consistency. So you're right. In the last since 2016, we've had Eddie Gran, we've had Liam Cohen, and we've had Scangarillo, and now Hamden. So we've had 4 since 2016, right?
4. Right.
Okay. So we've had 4 since 2016. Yeah. We really should have had 2.
Yes, 4 since 2020. But that's what people keep saying, and they keep saying and this is not me bashing Bush Hamden or anything. But but people keep saying you can't keep blaming the offense coordinator. We've had all these okay, yeah, that might be true, but you have to have a system. You have to have an offense. You have to
he's gotten it wrong twice. I mean, he has gotten it really he's gotten 3 coordinator hires really wrong. He's gotten 3 really right though. Because I mean, even Neil Brown, we weren't good back then. He was a great offensive coordinator. He got that hire right. He got Liam right. I mean, I think he's what have we had 6 coordinators in his time here in 12 years?
Yes, I believe so.
He's got 3 of them right, and we shouldn't have even had 2 of the other ones because
Shannon Dawson. Was Shannon Dawson right? I mean, he's doing pretty good in Miami. I don't know. Maybe he was. Maybe he learned some stuff since he was in Lexington.
Shannon Dawson didn't go.
let me say this: if Shannon Dawson would have worked, it would have been the right hire.
I don't know if you guys are very good though.
I make a Shannon Dawson. If it would have worked, you would have liked it. Reference probably once a week on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you. Because I like to say it too. Because like he's not the most raw. Like there's a logic there.
Well, it's true about every single play ever. I mean, if they didn't bat the ball down at the line of scrimmage 30 times last year versus against Devin Leary, maybe he completes all those passes and we win every game.
That offense, the more you look back at it now, and because people want to use last year and be like, oh, Stoops, this, Stoops. I'm sitting here like Leary had 7 drop touchdown passes. That would have gotten him up to 32. I don't know. I think that puts him really close to number 1 in the SEC. He had 25 touchdown passes last year. We're not sniffing 15 this year. And he had 25. Crazy. Half his interceptions were on him. Some of them were terrible throws. Some of them were drops, bad routes. But also, like the drops we had last year, if the guys catch the ball this year like they did last year, they win at least one more, if not 2
at least. That South Carolina game was the one that it's just like, what? Like, how do you lose that one?
But even Georgia, right? We had 2 really bad drops, and he misses Robinson wide open, 25 yards down. Now that was the problem, right? He would have great, and then just go ugly, but his ugly killed us, right? And it almost killed us again against Louisville when he threw that stupid ass ball in the air, right?
Yeah.
But Leary had moments, and I think if you replace Leary, if you have Leary this year, I think this team has 7 wins. Just being objective. He was good. He was way better than what people remember. I agree with that. I'll say this too. Kentucky doesn't have a Ray Davis. They don't have a Chris Rodriguez or a Benny Snell or even a Stanley Boone Williams this year. They don't I mean, they do, but he doesn't play. He doesn't get to Wilcox, I don't know if it's the playbook or if it's the shoes or if it whatever. He's a freshman. He's a freshman.
He's clearly the guy though. He's like, it's just so clear that him
and Patterson are going to be thunder and lightning.
Yeah.
I mean, those are this is kind of also like, I think that little transition year that you see. I think you see also there's a lot of guys. That's why also if you can win these next 2, if you can, it's so big because people go, 6-6, right? It's so big because you get those 13, 14 extra practices. You get these young guys are going to get more time. The young guys will play more in a bowl game. You get quarterbacks who are probably going to be here next year. Maybe Brock doesn't play in the bowl game, or maybe he does. But I mean,
he probably would because he'll be back, right? So,
but that's why it's so important if you can get these next 2. So anyway, we've been on this a long time, so we can wrap this up and talk about the other
4-6 football team.
Yeah, well, this 4-6 football team is probably the best 4-6 football team in the league.
Are they the best 4-6 football team of all time?
Probably.
It's up for debate. It's debatable. That's all I'm saying. Hey, we talked about this. Said like maybe the Dolphins could even potentially win out. They have the who's left in the Texans and the Packers are like the only 2. Oh, the Niners. So there's like 3 teams that are decent left on their schedule.
Did they win last night? The Texans?
They did. They won pretty easily.
Not that that's saying anything because Dallas sucks.
Yeah, they're bad.
They are really bad. So
I think they're also 4-6.
Miami has
they're the worst 4-6 team of all time.
They are that yes. Miami has the Patriots, the Packers, the Jets, the Texans, the Niners, the Browns, the Jets. So what is that?
I don't see any losses. On that schedule.
7 games left. And I think, the Dolphins are going to be favored in at least 5 of them. Because I think they'll be favored. They probably won't be favored at Green Bay on Thanksgiving Day. They might actually be favored at Houston. I don't think they'll be favored. But I think even against San Francisco at home, they'll be a favorite. Yeah. If they have to go 6-1, I think, down the stretch to make the playoffs.
Did you see Tua's numbers? Like from this, I mean,
they're disgusting.
Like, one of my friends, he's
touchdowns, 1 interception since he's come back from injury, and the interception wasn't even his fault.
Look, I'm telling you, like you look at the difference between when Tua's out there and when they had to throw in like different backups. There is an argument that Tua might just be the best quarterback in the NFL. Like him and like Joe Burrow is on the other equation. He's another one to consider because of all the bad luck the Bengals have had. But Tua's like he just might have to be in the conversation because it's like a JV team versus a varsity team when he gets in there. I mean, they could not move the ball against the Colts. The Colts suck, and they couldn't move the ball. They didn't score a point in the second half.
What's the
against the Titans?
Get out. If he was not out, what's our record?
You very, very easily flip it to 6-4 at minimum because they beat the Texans, the Titans.
I think we're 8-2 or 7-3.
I think 7-3 is definitely like what they would be, but it is. I mean, it's just one freaking play against the Bills that didn't matter. They were going to lose that game at that point anyway. Just go down. Like if he goes for any more, if he doesn't slide every time for the rest of his career, I'm going to get furious.
The fact that we lost 2 games on last second field goals in the last, it was 2 games. The first two was back, and Tua played really well in both of those games. And the defense, it's almost kind of like we realized that one of our linebackers just sucked, and it only took losing all those games for it to happen because he's not here anymore. But the defense is starting to play better.
Mm-hmm. Defense was good. I'm telling you what, the Bills don't want us. They don't want us again. They don't want to try to beat us a third time. I'm telling you.
I like the Dolphins team this year if they get into the playoffs a little bit more because I feel like they're going to play like I think if they got in, they'd play with a lot more reckless abandon. I don't think you'd see also not playing in negative fucking 30 would probably also help.
That would help a little bit.
Quarterback that was from Hawaii. I mean, come on, like.
Yeah, it sucked not getting home field advantage by not being.
Draft strategy to me.
It sounds like what?
Bad draft strategy, not accounting for the Kansas City road game.
Minus 30, bro. It was minus 30. All right.
That game shouldn't have been played.
Or if it was just regular 0, y'all still would have lost.
It should not have been played. But hopefully, man, we make a run. Hopefully, Kentucky has a big weekend. We gotta obviously basketball game. What's your score prediction tonight?
Why not just go into the hundreds again? 100-73. That'd be 3 straight home games with 100 points. I don't know when the last time that's happened, but I think one thing I will predict tonight, maybe tonight could be the first capacity crowd of the season. I think fans are just so fired up. That's what beating Duke also does.
Really cheap, by the way. Like
it's really cheap. So I don't know if people are making the Tuesday rainy drive to Rupp Arena downtown. They should. Right. They deserve a big congratulations and a celebration for last week. Let's just beat somebody by.
Well, I'm supposed to go with the kids tonight, but that is the problem: is the rain. And I understand it's inside, but trying to get 3 kids from your car to inside of an arena if it's raining is not necessarily the greatest thing in the world.
If you've ever tried to drive in Lexington when it's sunny versus when it's raining, you would think that the world was ending when a speck of water comes out of the sky.
Yes. Yeah, Big Blue Drew tweeted that today. He said if the roads are wet, add another 50% to your drive.
Yeah.
I'm glad he tweeted that. He's 100% correct. Driving in Lexington in all times sucks, but in the rain you might as well walk.
Yeah.
I wish there was a way to know how many tickets were available on all these sites. I wish there was a way to know because I'm clicking through it right now and there are tickets for $15. Like, go to the game. Go to the game.
I think if it wasn't a Tuesday and it wasn't like crappy, because this is kind of like the beginning of like the rest of the week being not great because it's supposed to be this crappy. It's supposed to get cold. And we're supposed to get a bunch of snow.
Awesome.
So, I mean, here's the thing. I think everybody needs to like think about. There's an off chance that Louisville, Kentucky could be in the snow.
Ooh. That hasn't happened before. I know for a fact that has not happened in my lifetime. They usually used to play it the first game of the season, so that'd be kind of cool. They did play it in really cold rain when Lynn Bowden was quarterback.
Yeah. Well, so 5 years ago to the day. Well, I wasn't at that game because that was 5 years ago to the day my son was born. So the Louisville Kentucky game this year will be on his 5th birthday.
That's cool.
So he was in the NICU, but I was walking and my wife's hospital room had like a window view so we could see the fireworks going off every time he scored. And it was like, boom, Scored, boom, scored. I was like, oh my God, keep like we watched the game, but obviously it's a little faster than TV, right? So you'd hear the fireworks go off, and then you'd see Lynn Bowden on a 40-yard run. So it was great. So my son has never seen Kentucky lose to Louisville in football. So let's see if we continue that. What's your prediction for Saturday?
Texas? Predicting Kentucky to score more than 20 points is a terrible idea. So I know to go below that. So I'm going to say Texas wins 27-13. But we'll have another situation where Kentucky has the ball with a chance to tie in the fourth quarter. I believe that will happen again.
It's going to be like 20-13 kind of situation.
Yeah, and we're talking about, hey, if we score here, do we go ahead and go for 2 to try to take the lead? I think it's very possible, and just give me that.
Do you think we throw everything in the kitchen sink because we know if we win this game that we can beat Louisville straight up?
Yeah, I think if you're going to take some chances, this is the week to do it because it's like I said after the Georgia game. It's 4th and 8. Yeah, they weren't going to convert that first down. Statistically, they weren't going to get it, but just do it anyway. Just see it because if there's a 10% chance, 1 in 10, 10% chance.
But we should have run the ball.
Yeah, probably should have done that first. Yeah, I agree. So if you're in a situation this week where it's like, hey, you have a chance to do a fake punt or something.
They have had 3 weeks to prepare for this game. I know that things did not look crisp with the first team offense in at all times on Saturday. But if there are gaps in the Texas defense, which if you watch them play, they're hard to find. But if they have tendencies, if they have a look that they don't like, you have had 3 weeks to find it. Plus, all offseason, you've probably scouted their defense. Both coordinators have been there for 4 seasons. They have the most continuity in the country. You've been able to watch these guys operate. You know what Texas does in and out if you spend your offseason, watching them, anticipating, or just they're good at things. Like you should be watching them for fun, maybe. But they have had time to figure this out. I would unload the clip, go all the way into the bag, and I have more stats like we can talk about throughout the week.
Onside kicks, everything. If Kentucky scores and goes up 7, onside kick right next play, and if you get it, you go up 2 scores. I like then it's way more fun.
But yeah, Kentucky is going to the things that work numerically.
Black, white, black this weekend, Kentucky. Black, white, black.
Yeah, and they this past week they ran the things that they have the high success rate of. They ran as much this week against Murray State as they had the rest of the season combined. It was a specific boot concept and a specific dive concept. They had ran it, and it was like 65% success rate on those concepts.
Wow!
Like they have found things that they are good at. They have had so much time to figure out what Texas is bad at. If they're gonna unload the clip and just say screw it, let's do it all. There's no better time to do it than now.
I want Wilcox to have like 30 carries. Like I just hand it off to him until he can't run anymore. And then put in Demi and then go back to Wilcox. And like you said, let's throw some passes to the guy that can make some incredible catches.
Well, Barryon's going to be back too, so that'll also help. But
I mean, we have some weapons.
Maybe Barryon gets a touchdown. I think if we're going to win this game, Kentucky has to get at least 10 points off special teams defense, and that could be a turnover inside the red zone or a scoring on either one, or both of them have to set them up in prime position to score on offense.
I definitely think if they're going to pull this out, they're going to have to probably turn them over 3 times, and one of them might have to lead to points like immediately. Like you might have to get a scoop and score, a pick 6, something just to steal a possession, but also to get a little pressure on them. Like I said, that's what the Tennessee game. If we don't throw a pick 6 there and we just take our 3 points, and it's a 1-point game. Does Nico grip that ball a little tighter? Because he did when we scored. We got the ball back pretty quick.
That's another on the long list of plays of calls during crunch time that makes my head explode. It's just like stop trying to outthink and outsmart everyone. Run the damn ball.
Well, he was supposed to run it. He was
3rd and 1.
He was supposed to run the ball. Gavin was. He said in the post game, and he saw the Mike linebacker coming up, and I guess he's kind of said he forgot that they had him picked up. So he thought he should have passed it because he saw the Mike coming down. So that, and I think that's all Kentucky wanted to do there. I think they were totally cool with not getting the first down and kicking the field goal and making it a 1-point game, and then making Nico have to, make a play, because then you're right there to get the ball back, get a field goal, and take the lead.
Well, the momentum shift is there. Then you're 1 point down, kicking off. They got to go the length of the field. You're feeling good. The defense is playing well. The momentum's on your sideline. All of those things come into play.
Yeah, and it was basically the start of the fourth quarter. So I think that you can get in a situation like that again with this version of UT and have a chance to shock the world. And this is what's great. I mean, I love these kind of games. If your season is kind of like where it is with Kentucky, you have to love playing in a game like this or being a fan of a team that plays in a game like this, because don't let us win. That's all. Like I told Tennessee fans the whole night we were in Knoxville, don't let us win, because we will never shut up about it. Yeah, like if we knock Texas out of, like, because we're going to give this to Ole Miss. Ole Miss got knocked out of the playoffs by Kentucky. If you let us win in one of our worst years, you will never stop hearing about it. Texas, the one time we get a chance to play you, we go in to your stadium and give you an L that maybe knocks you out of the playoffs. I don't know if it will, but maybe.
Well, but here's the thing. Boy, does it make the next weekend, because they probably have one mulligan in either the SEC title game or next week. But if they lose to Kentucky, I think we looked at it. If they lose to Kentucky, I think they're out of the SEC title game. I think if they win, I think if they beat Kentucky,
it's a bad loss. Like, it would be a bad loss.
Actually, I think it's A&M. I think if A&M wins, this week, I think they go to the SEC. But I think A&M is going to lose this week. I'm going to tell you right now, I think chaos happens this week. If you go look at some of the games, and Jaden did a parlay of a $20 bet. If it had hit, it would be, I'd win $1,000. So I'm debating, this could be really fun just to see if it hit.
On a 5-leg parlay, it was it wasn't even like you put 14 legs or anything in there.
Might have to do it. Steven, man, I really appreciate you joining. The show went way longer than I thought it was going to go, but this is what happens when you're just talking and having a good time. Tell everybody where they can follow you on the social media stuff.
All right, Twitter, or X, previously known as Twitter. That's at Stephen P. KSR. But a lot of my work you'll see on KSR's YouTube channel.
There you go, guys. Appreciate it. Jaden, as always, man, I'll see you on Monday, if nothing else. And hopefully we're talking about, hopefully we see Swaggy Stoops walking in there. Where I'm going to tell you right now, if they win this weekend, Kroger Field for that Louisville game is going to be obnoxious.
Yeah.
Obnoxious.
Yeah. And fans are going to be hungry for a big win in that building.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks for listening. This is going to go on. If you watch it live, this is also going to go on all the podcast channels here in about 10 minutes.